Hey everybody, welcome to The Blacklist, the show where we interview the elite. Today we have Gary Brecka.
Gary Brecka.
Gary Brecka.
Gary Brecka.
Gary Brecka.
Biologist, is co-founder of 10X
big life insurance company.
We've been joined now by,
and it's a combination of five things.
How are you, sir? How's everything going?
See you, brother.
It's good to see you. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man.
It seems like as a society today, we've advanced a lot with biohacking, with our medical practices, with a lot of that stuff going on. However, it seems as if mental health has kind of spiked up and depression has gone up. You would think that, with a lot of the new technology and what we know now, that should kind of decrease. What are your thoughts on that?
I think, first of all, you're right. I mean, you see an increase in mental health because we have new stressors that are related to mental health. We become such an instant gratification society. Younger children are being exposed to adult concepts much earlier in life, which makes a fragile identity much more difficult to deal with. You have young women and young men that are trying to live up to Instagram models and TikTok models. They're looking for instant gratification. Our relationships have gotten a lot more superficial, and this is a fact pattern. This is not, conjecture on my part. I still remember, in the 8th grade, getting sweaty palms and nervous and being covered with goosebumps because I wanted to go ask a girl if she would go to a dance with me. Yeah. Now you can just kind of lob a text message in and sort of feel it out. And so I think a lot of the, human interaction, human emotion has been replaced by the dopamine reward that we get from social media. And I'm not just attacking social media, but when young men and women and young entrepreneurs see that everyone on social media is so successful and so beautiful and so well-traveled and has such a great life, and they don't, this can impact their mental health. I also think that, I have a saying that aging is the aggressive pursuit of comfort. And the reason why I say that is because the more aggressively we pursue comfort, the faster we age. And, very interesting study published in the BMJ Learning journal, recently, and this study looked at a comparison between exercise and standard psychotherapy and medications, and it actually found that, and this was a meta study, and it found that exercise was more beneficial for conditions like anxiety and depression than standard psychotherapy and medication.
Yeah.
Found essentially all forms of exercise produce significant mental benefits. They said that shorter term, high intensity exercise kind of produced the greatest effect. But Dr. Ben Singh did a great job in this study, this meta-analysis of looking at the greatest mental health benefit to people with depression, or even people who have been diagnosed with HIV, kidney disease, pregnancy, postpartum women, and otherwise healthy adults. And we just found that movement really helped to elevate our mood and elevate our emotional state. And, bringing us back to the social media and the phones and sort of being addicted to the dopamine that comes from that screen, we very often forget that happiness can be found in the basics.
Why do you think so many people are against, movement? And I'll give you an example, right? Like, as controversial as like Andrew Tate is, like some of the things that he says is if you work out, if you do push-ups, etc., like it'll decrease the amount of like depression that you feel or the amount of sadness that you feel. And right now, the study that you're talking about just kind of plays more towards that. If you move more, if you get active more, you'll start feeling better. But why do you think people are, semi against that at the moment?
Well, I think that you got to look at it 3 ways. First of all, mood and emotional state are directly tied to our physiology, right? So your physiology will drag you down into the state where it most comfortably exists. And what I mean by that is if you are physiologically tired, if you have low red blood cell count, if you have anemia, if you have chronic fatigue, if you have gut issues, then what's going to happen is your physiology is going to act like an anchor rather than a thruster, right? And so I really remind people that all of these elevated emotional states that we'd love to exist in, passion, elation, joy, arousal, libido, sort of the, what I call the hell yeah, I won the lottery emotions, right? These all require an elevated oxidative state. They all require oxygen in the blood. Right. So the reason why no human being has ever woken up laughing is because you don't have the oxidative state to experience laughter out of deep sleep. But can you wake up angry? Yes, because these motions are readily available. You know, you can do an interesting experiment tonight if you'd like on your spouse. And when they're in a deep sleep, just give them a good deep pinch. They'll instantly wake up angry, right?
Yeah.
If I want to make you laugh, I've got to orient you and wake you up, and I've got to move you around. I've got to get oxygen into your body. I've got to elevate that emotional state. I've got to make the endorphins available. And so movement is one of the most overlooked things, in my opinion, in all of modern medicine. You know, I recently actually did a post on my Instagram about a very sad encounter that I had with my mother, who was actually in post-operative rehab for double knee replacement. One of her knees got infected. Long story short, they didn't get out of bed for 45 days. And my kids and I went up there for a surprise visit. When we walked in the room, we were so shocked. She had completely deteriorated. She didn't recognize me. I'm her only son. She didn't recognize her grandchildren. She was frightened. She was disoriented. She was completely confused. She thought she was being held against her will. The only reason why we got on video is because we wanted to go in and video the surprise of me and the grandkids showing up with all the balloons and everything. And I just remember the impact on me emotionally. And I said, you know, there's got to be so many people like me with aging parents that are in this position. What I'm going to do is document myself walking my mother out of this over the next 10 weeks. And the very first thing I did was I went down and rattled the cage of the facility. And I said, my mother needs to get out of bed 3 times a day. She needs to do occupational therapy, physical therapy. And we started her on a regimen of physical therapy. I put her on some other things like resveratrol, a resveratrol product. I put her on a complex of B vitamins. I put her on some brain neurotropics and a peptide called cerebrolysin. But the majority of her recovery was because we made her mobile. And 10 weeks later, you would have thought you were looking at a 40-year-old woman. I mean, she's bouncing off the walls, drive my dad crazy, wants to redecorate the house. My father wanted me to dial her back a little bit. And it's just amazing, you know, because circulation is what creates the blood flow in the brain to get oxygen into these tissues. It doesn't happen really at rest. I mean, runner's high is a real thing. Yeah. Right. You know, that elevated mood, that elevated emotional state, the endorphin rush. And so when we can get that same level of dopamine from static things like blue light from our screens and constant dopamine ding rewards from our phone, then we seek it from static activity and not from dynamic activity. Right. And I see that aging is the aggressive pursuit of comfort because most people don't like to be uncomfortable. Right? We don't take cold showers, even though they're free, because we don't want to be uncomfortable. We got to stop telling grandma not to go outside. It's too hot, not to go outside. It's too cold, just to lay down, just to relax, to eat at the very first pang of hunger. This is collapsing all of our natural defense mechanisms. There's a process in the body called hormesis, and it's where you stress it and it strengthens in response, right? If you don't load a muscle, if you don't tear a muscle, it doesn't grow. Yeah. If you don't load a bone, it won't strengthen. If you don't challenge the immune system, it weakens. This is exactly what happens to our mind.
One of the things that I think a lot of people should give you credit for is, I think prior to you, there wasn't really too many people focusing that much on their health. I think, you know, once other people started seeing, you know, people like Dana, people like the Nelk boys, like Stephanie Smith, like a lot of these people start working on their actual health. It started becoming, you know, I would say a little bit more popular now. Which I think is good because that's it. That's the right direction to go to.
Yeah, it was a real blessing for so many of these guys. This is what I call my wall of fame right there. Sorry.
Nice.
But you know, it was a real blessing for me to have these guys be willing to be vulnerable, right, and to get on and talk about their blood work and their gene testing and some of them, you know, darkest secrets. You know, they're on a CPAP machine. They're on, you know, blood thinners and blood pressure medication, thyroid medication, even antidepressants, and to get out of that situation and then be willing enough to be vulnerable enough to speak about it. And I think it's you know, really helped get the message out.
Has there ever been, you know, a time where, which I'm pretty sure there is, where you pulled somebody's blood panel and, you know, it's not the news that like somebody's looking for? Does that happen more often than not?
It doesn't happen more often than not, because usually by the time they're coming to me, there's some issue that they're having, right? And I need to be clear, I am not a physician. I'm not licensed to practice medicine. So, Nothing I say should be construed as medical advice, but I do have a phenomenal team of physicians that work for me in my company. And, I think when we look at human beings and we look at blood work, we look at gene testing, we look at any anomaly that's going on in the human body, I wish that we would take the vantage point of the following. I wish we would do three things. Number one, we should first assume that God did not make a mistake. And by that, I mean, let's not assume that somebody just woke up one day with an autoimmune disease. In other words, you didn't wake up one day with Crohn's and your body is manufacturing antibodies to your intestine. You didn't wake up one day and all of a sudden your body is manufacturing antibodies to the thyroid. You didn't wake up one day and it's manufacturing antibodies to the lacrimal gland. You didn't have an autoimmune disease. We should assume that God didn't make a mistake and the immune system is acting properly. We just need to find out why it's there.
Yeah.
Is it attacking the gut because gut bacteria are leaking through the luminal wall? And that's what called the immune system to that site. And now the immune system's after foreign bacteria, not after the actual tissue in the gut. Did heavy metals get embedded in the thyroid that called the immune system to that location? And now it's trying to get into those cells to get to the metals, which caused an immune flare up. And if we took that vantage point, okay, God didn't make a mistake. We need to find out why the immune system's acting this way, or we need to find out why this person's mental condition is this way. And the second thing is we should ask ourselves, what nutrient deficiency could cause this condition to occur? We accept this in plants. If you ever have a leaf rotting in a palm tree and you call a true arborist, a true botanist out to your house, and they look at that rotting leaf, they won't touch the leaf. They will core test the soil and they'll say, you know what? There's no nitrogen in the soil. And they'll add nitrogen to the soil and the leaf will heal. Yeah. Human beings are no different. When we get deficient in one of the 91 essential minerals, one of the 2 essential fatty acids, one of the 3 essential amino acids, the real basics, we get the expression of disease. And when you start to delete nutrients from the human body, you get the expression of disease. So the second issue is, what nutrient could be missing from this person's body that could be causing this condition to exist? And then the final one is take all of the ailments that this patient, that this client is suffering from. Think about them like spokes on a wheel and ask yourself, where do they all meet? Could this person have the mental condition of early onset dementia, the cardiac condition of congestive heart failure, and the neuropathic condition of peripheral neuropathy because of one thing? Circulation? Or do they have 3 independent, systems that are just going haywire? So, try to look at where do these things meet, right? Yeah. And if we approached human beings this way, and we got back to studying human beings and back to studying human physiology, and we put the faith back in humanity and mankind, the power that this has over this, right? We know now science is starting to provide us tremendous amount of evidence that the gut-brain connection is much more valid than we ever thought possible. 90% of the serotonin, the main driver of mood, is right here in our gut. If you don't have it here, you can't have it here. So if you can convert tryptophan, an amino acid, into the neurotransmitter serotonin, and it can't travel up the vagus nerve into the brain to help assist in the creation of emotion and mood, then you have a mood disorder, you have a mental illness. And now once you get whacked with that mental illness, right? ADD, ADHD, OCD, manic depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, whatever it is. Now you accept that you have a mental illness and you are willing to subscribe to a lifetime of medication.
Yeah, that's powerful. In fact, that actually flows really well into, into kind of like for psychology today. Like, do you think there's opportunities for collaboration between health optimizers or like biohackers and like mental health professionals to kind of for holistic treatments?
No question. I mean, listen, one is not right and the other wrong, or the other right and the other wrong. Certainly, I am not in any way poo-pooing or down talking the psychiatric industry or the mental health industry or counseling or therapy. Real, true mental conditions exist. People go through trauma. People experience life events differently than others. Stress affects people differently. Mental health counseling, psychotherapy are a part of the puzzle. But I think that we should take a whole being approach, right? Instead of focusing from the neck up, let's look at the entire being, right? I mean, some of the worst research that you see in modern medicine is when we study things in isolation. I know from the mortality business that if you want to cut a human being's life expectancy in half, and I mean in half, at any age, put them in isolation. So the same thing happens when our cells, if you pluck a cell out of a human body and you drop it into a petri dish in a lab and you start looking at how it behaves in a lab, and then you assume that that's how it's going to behave when you put it back into its community, you're wrong, right? Human beings do not behave in isolation. We behave in communities. Cells do not behave in isolation. They behave in communities. Things like broken heart syndrome, are very real syndromes. We saw it in the mortality space. Caregiver syndrome, which was a nickname we gave to people that had, a loved one that was struggling and they actually put their interest before their own. And then you see their rapid decline in health while they're trying to care for somebody else. It's okay to be selfish with your temple, right? There's a reason why, commercial airlines tell moms to put an oxygen mask on before they assist their own child, right? Because you cannot be in service to your community, to your family, to your loved ones, if you're not in service to yourself. And so, I think the greatest way to lead a mental health charge is to start with your health, start with yourself. And then the second is to, stop thinking that the brain and the body are so disconnected. Gut dysbiosis. I mean, the majority of the dopamine also made in our gut. Dopamine is the main driver of behavior. Serotonin was one of the main drivers of mood. You begin to deplete dopamine, you will drive people to seek and engage in dopamine-seeking behavior. And what is that? That's addictive type behaviors. So if I was able to magically draw the dopamine out of your body, you might start craving nicotine, alcohol, promiscuity, gambling, workoutaholic. You fix the dopamine deficiency, you calm the driver of that behavior down. So I really feel like we are very quick to label people with psychiatric conditions, right? Like you take a kid that's creative and has a lot of energy and you put him in a public school and you tell him to sit at that desk for 5 hours and concentrate and focus and follow this assignment and pay attention to the teacher, and he can't, he has a mental illness.
Yeah.
No, he's probably a genius, dude. My money's on that kid. If I'm betting on any of them in that class, give me the disruptor that has ideas and something to say and the energy to execute on it. Sorry, I went down a tangent there for a second.
Good. I actually want to go back a little bit to the things that you were talking about with isolation. I think we're probably gotten even more isolated now more than ever since the pandemic hit, because now there's a lot more people working from home, doing stuff like this where they're communicating, via Zoom instead of, either being in the workplace or, being in community. Do you think that also kind of played a role? Because
there's absolutely no question. We are about to live through the greatest revolution in medicine in modern times. The next 5 years, in my opinion, you are going to see 3 centuries of medical advancements in the next half a decade. 5 years. The reason for that is, for the first time, we have the convergence of big data, artificial intelligence, and early detection. And what you're going to find is no longer will single study, peer-reviewed clinical trials be extrapolated out to big communities. Like, and let me give you an example. So I'm wearing a Whoop, a big fan of Whoop. And I did a sleep challenge last month, and I had about 100,000 people sign up for it. I had about 8,000 people that got into this sleep challenge. And what we did was we developed a baseline, and we decided that we would do 5 simple activities to try to improve their sleep, right? That wouldn't cost them anything. Number 1, we did a contrast shower, which was like a hot shower followed by a burst of cold water for about 30 seconds before getting into bed. We used a sleep mask. We did a breath work technique called natural Xanax, which is the 6-second inhale, 3-second hold, 6-second exhale. We chilled the room down to 68, 69 degrees, and we surgically removed all of the light from the room, stitched all the curtains up and unplugged the electronics 6 feet from our head. Yeah. I saw a 20 to 28% improvement in sleep scores in thousands of people. That to me is valid data. Yeah. Right. When you take 4 or 5 people and you stick them in a room at University of Miami in a cold, sterile room on a cot with somebody looking at them through a 2-way mirror with electrodes on their head, and you say, okay, go to sleep. And we're gonna take this sleep study on these 5 people, and we're gonna extrapolate that out to the population. So we have population data. You can even look at the blue zone data. What's really interesting about blue zones, where you have hypercentenarians, people living, well beyond age 100, is there was no commonality in their diets. Right? Singapore, one of the highest meat consumptions in the world, one of the longest life expectancies. Sardinia, one of the highest carbohydrate consumptions, one of the longest life expectancies. France, defying all the odds, eating dairy and cheese and drinking wine, and then you got the Mediterranean with high fatty fishes and high oil consumptions. But to your point, what ran consistent through all of these centenarians was a sense of purpose, right? It was a sense of community and a sense of purpose. A lot of these countries don't even have assisted care living facilities. You know what assisted care living is? Mom and dad move back in with the kids till they die, right? And so, I mean, we can learn a lot from this, right? I mean, you want to accelerate the decline of somebody, put them in an assisted care living facility with a nurse they don't know, with a doctor that sees them twice a week in a cold, dark room with no activities, and assume that they're going to go out and create their own community with people that they've never met before that have also been abandoned. And then we wonder why there's accelerated decline. Bring these people into the family, make them feel like there's a sense of purpose. I mean, some of these women, that were hypercentenarians, their only job was to gather vegetables for the family's meals for the day. But they were out in the garden, they had a purpose, and they had a sense of belonging and need. And I think isolation is the most dangerous thing for the human psyche. And I'm sure psychiatrists or, might disagree with me, but I think that when human beings feel isolated, disconnected, and despondent, and this is when you face real consequences in their mental health.
Yeah. No, that's powerful. And I think even for myself, like I think I stay isolated more than I'd like. But we get busy and we just don't think about it too much. But it's true, without community, without the purpose to be kind of out and about and have a mission. I can see why, I would say like the will to live could die down.
And also you can find a lot of uplifting things in the basics, right? I mean, you want to really improve your mental health, just get back in touch with Mother Nature. Take your shoes off, touch the surface of the earth. Grounding and earthing is a very real thing. It was poo-pooed for decades, but now the research is again catching up to earthing and grounding. We were meant to touch the surface of the earth. We were actually meant to spend 85% of our time outdoors. We spend 95% of our time indoors now. We regulate everything, our temperature, our lighting, everything. If you just took your shoes off and touched the surface of the earth, exposed your skin to sunlight. The truth is most of us are not getting enough sun. It's not that we're getting too much sun. We're not getting enough sun. Expose your skin to sunlight. Do some breath work. Get air into your lungs. Flex those auxiliary muscles of respiration. You probably haven't sprinted in years, so pretend like you're sprinting when you're sitting. Use a contrast shower. You don't have to take an ice cold shower. Take a cool shower. Get chilly. Deal with it. And get out and dry off. And you tell me how you feel. I'll tell you what, you want to improve your mental health over the next week for zero? Every morning, try to wake up as close as you can with the sun. Get outside, even if you're in a cold climate, or get over near a window, open the window, horizon gaze. Look out as far on the horizon as you can. And then while you're exposing your skin to sunlight, take your shirt off, expose your skin to sunlight. Do a few easy rounds of breath work. Take some deep breaths in and just breathe out through a straw. And if you can, if it's not too cold, I'm not going to give you the excuse if it's too hot, but if it's not too cold, take your shoes off and go out for 6 or 8 minutes, touch the surface of the earth. When you get back in, do a contrast shower, warm shower followed by 30 seconds to a minute of cold. You tell me how good you feel. Yeah. And it will cost you nothing, right? Yeah. And if you really want to throw it on steroids, go get a pinch of pink Himalayan or a pinch of Celtic sea salt or Baja Gold sea salt. Put it in an 8-ounce glass of water. Stir it up and whack that back and hydrate and remineralize the body. And then for 1 week, go to bed at the exact same time every night. I'm telling you, the difference between your mental state on a Monday versus the following Monday will be night and day.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. In fact, at first, when even just with like breath work, I would hear about breath work and, to me, it's just like, well, you're just breathing. But I mean, I have a friend that like, he leads like breathwork sessions and things of that sort. And like grown men, like cry, they get, like it's an experience. And obviously they're doing breath work a little bit differently than what you're, kind of talking about. You're talking about it so that way you can get more oxygen inside of the body and, do that. But a lot of this stuff, although seems simple, makes a huge difference. And, for most people that are probably going to be listening to this, it's free. So they don't necessarily need to do anything extra other than utilize what they already have.
Yeah, everything I just told you is absolutely free.
Yeah.
You're going to go to bed, try to be consistent. You're probably going to take, at least you hope you're going to take a shower. Just end on cold.
Yeah.
Every single one of us is close to the outdoors, where you are. Get out there and enjoy the light and the magnetism of the earth and the oxygen from the air. We are photovoltaic beings. Light just doesn't tan our skin. It passes through our skin and helps with circulation, with inflammation. It helps actually push oxygen into something called the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell, right? I mean, when it gets oxygen inside of it, it has more energy, which is the energy that human beings survive on. And so there's so much that we can do that's in the simplicity of the world around us. You have to contemplate a difficult life situation. Do it while you're walking. Because you will find that you have less of a tendency to go to worst case scenario than you do if you sit at your desk or you sit in a dark room, or God forbid you do it while you're in bed.
Yeah.
You have a tendency to head towards worst case scenario. And then if you really want to go next level, get some data on your body, get some basic blood work, your hormone balance, your nutrient deficiencies, your blood sugar control, get data. Most of us have more data on our business than we do on our bodies. Yet if we were asked what's more important, our business or our bodies, we'd always say our body.
Yeah.
Significantly more business. I do this with young entrepreneurs all the time. I'll ask an audience full of them, what's more important, your health or your wealth? Oh my gosh, my health. What's more important, your body or your business? Oh my gosh, my body's more important. I go, why don't you come on up here on the stage? And then I'll ask them, hey, what kind of business do you own? Oh, I'm an online marketer. Great. How much money did you make last month? 668,000. Okay. What was your net profit? 142,400. How many employees do you have? 7. What's your average revenue per employee? 79,444. What's your hemoglobin A1C? What's your vitamin D3 level? What's your testosterone? Blank. But you just told me that your health was more important than your business. So really make it a priority, right? Get data on your body and then just act on that data. And if you don't have the money or health insurance coverage, then at the minimum, get back in touch with nature, right?
Yeah.
And I'm saying you got to go to the woods. I live in the city. I mean, if you turn this around, I'm on the 21st floor of a condo. I'm 200 feet in the air, but I get down and try to ground every day.
Yeah. No, well, this is super powerful stuff. So I appreciate the time. Where can people find you?
You can find me at theultimatehuman.com. I have a free newsletter that I write every single week on different biohacking techniques and biooptimization. I also have a podcast called The Ultimate Human. Or you can find me on Instagram, where I do a lot of teaching, and it's just my first and last name, Gary Brecka, GaryBrecka.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Awesome. I enjoyed it, brother.